If you're listening to this, it's estimated you'll spend roughly 90,000 hours working in your lifetime. That's 1/3 of your entire life. If you're anything like me, you've probably asked, what am I working for? Maybe you've thought about quitting your job, changing careers, altering your relationship to work, or trying not to let your work rule your life. And if that's the case, this series is for you. Hey everybody, it's Chad here, and welcome back into my series on a level deeper, what are we working for? Today, we're going to explore the age-old question. Well, maybe it's actually not really age-old, as Mitchell Martin pointed out earlier in this series. Maybe it's a post-industrial revolution question, which is, which one's better? Pursuing your passion or making money? And do you have to pick? For my experience, and as I was preparing for this series and for this episode in particular, I just did some Googling and I was spending some time on Reddit. And this is a common question that people have. Should I pursue what is my passion, or should I focus on making the most amount of money possible? And what's interesting is these two things seem to be opposed to one another. People view it as you have to choose one. You know, if you pursue your passion, it's almost like the starving artist sort of thing where, well, I'm going to love what I do and I'm going to have to sacrifice money in order to do what I love. Or I can prioritize making money. I can make more money and I'm going to do something that presumably doesn't make me as happy or isn't something that I love or isn't a passion. And so in this episode, we're going to explore those two concepts. I've got conversations to share with you from three people who offer three unique perspectives and share their stories as they've looked at this question of pursuing their passion or trying to make money, and ultimately, which one's better? First up, I had a conversation with Brittany Denam, who is someone that is actually from my hometown, and as I was looking for guests for the show, she had reached out to me and said, you know, I'm working on a personal kind of passion project of my own. And I'm not trying to monetize it right now. I'm not trying to make money from it. And people keep asking me, and there's, you know, I feel this pressure maybe to do that. And so I wanted to have a conversation with Brittany to learn more about how she was thinking about going about this situation in her work life. So without further ado, here's Brittany Denam. So Brittany, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a part of this and sharing some of your story. I guess to start, just paint a little bit of a picture for us of what does your work life look like right now?
Yeah, so I work in hospice right now, which is interesting. I didn't ever think I would end up here, but I truly love my job. I never thought I would be here, but I'm so thankful I'm here. So actually almost 10 years ago, I started working at an assisted living and independent living community, and I started as a housekeeper. So I left my Mary Maid's job right out of high school, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to school for healthcare administration because that's what I think I should do. And so I'll just work at this assisted living as a housekeeper because that's all I got. And so I did that. And then I kind of worked my way into a caregiving role there. So I did caregiving, medication management, medication passing, taking care of people who were on hospice and who weren't. Anybody who you would see in an assisted living, that's kind of what I was doing. And I did that for 5 years during my undergraduate degree. And then I moved down to Florida and I was a case manager for a little bit at Florida's largest single site CCRC. So CCRC stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community. So they have the entire continuum. They have independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. So I did that for actually just 3 months because Hurricane Irma hit in Florida, and my husband and I were like, we're not going to try to pick up our cats and go home every time there's a hurricane. So that didn't last long. It was more of an internship than a job, but it was a great experience. And I came home and I was just literally looking for any type of job. And then I ended up actually at where I did my undergraduate internship. I landed there as their activities director for 1.5 years before I took a break to take care of my kid, to have the kids and get married and all that stuff. And then once I was ready to return to work, I was looking for like a sales and marketing position because I found that was like my niche while I was off of work. I did some other kind of other things, and I found that I really liked sales marketing, but I also wanted to be in like the senior living and aging services realm. So I wanted to connect my experience from before and my experience that I was getting while I was kind of like taking my leave, if you will, and connect the two. So I started working at Visiting Angels of Ann Arbor and Farmington Hills as their director of marketing and community relations. And I only worked there for 6 months. That was not anticipated. I wanted to be there for 3 to 5 years, kind of start my career all over, and I had a lot of offers, and I had this opportunity come up, and I couldn't pass it up. So now I work in hospice, and I do a lot of education, and I do a lot of family consultations, which is what I'm super passionate about, is just making sure that people understand the hospice benefit and they're using it. It's a free benefit that people pay into when they pay into their Medicare. They're entitled to it, and they shouldn't just have to use it for 3 days. They should use it for as long as they need it.
You mentioned the word passion, and that's one that I'm always interested in like, this idea of where does passion come from? Specifically, you said you're passionate about sharing with people about hospice and educating them about the opportunities that exist. It's interesting how, because you talked about like you never imagined yourself getting into the hospice space, and now here you are saying that you're passionate about sharing. What does that word passion sort of mean to you, and where do you think that passion comes from? What's behind it?
I could go on about this for hours because I love hospice care, and the company I work for, our mission is to provide the absolute highest quality hospice care. That's it. Like, people have all these mission statements that are like three sentences long and go on about whatever. And I'm like, just stop. Like, stop all the extra stuff. If we can just hone in and focus on delivering high quality care, we're doing something right. And I've been in this new role for only 4 months, and I'm seeing all of that pay off. And my passion, like my enthusiasm, my want to help people receive high quality care rubs off on other people. And then like I can have other people talking about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, everyone's talking about how we're so great here and there. And I'm like, yes, that's what I want. As long as we're providing high quality care, like, I don't care what else happens. Like, I do, like, we have to be in compliance and all this other jazz, but that's not my problem. That's somebody else's problem. As long as I know we're providing high quality care, that's all I care about. So I don't know. I hope that kind of answers your question.
When you think about this idea of high quality care, what goes into creating that? What does that actually look like? What does that mean to you?
I don't want complaints. Like, I want to be there as fast as I can be there, and I don't want people suffering. That's what that means to me. I do not want people suffering. If I can't be there right now to help fulfill your needs, I need to send somebody else, whether that be somebody else from my team. And if nobody else from the team can go, then we need to call a different company, because that person, if they need care, they deserve it now. They don't deserve it in 3 days after they've been sitting there in pain. So to me, that's what high quality care looks like, is to get everything to the patient and their family as soon as we possibly can. And when this business of like aging services in general, not just hospice care, is a service-based business, and it's people helping people. And there's going to be service failures. There's going to be things that go wrong because it's people helping people, and personalities don't always, go hand in hand. Like, people don't always mesh, and that's okay. But it's how we're addressing those service failures or how we're addressing those complaints. Are we addressing them with a sense of urgency? Are we addressing them and making sure we don't do it again? So yeah, that's what high quality care is to me. Being there as fast as I can be, having all of everything that they need. And I didn't realize how much went into it until I got here. Like, I've learned so much in these 4 months that I'm like, whoa. And I was talking to a building today and I was like, yeah, like I had an admission on Saturday and I was like, I was trying to do this and trying to do that. And they were like, we had no idea all that was going on. And I was like, and that's what I like to hear. That's what I like to hear. Like, I thought it was crazy and chaotic, but nobody knew. The family didn't know. The facility didn't know. Nobody knew that behind the scenes we were like hustling.
So in the mix of all of this, you have decided to start to create and invest into some of your own personal brand. You have a podcast. You're doing some posting on social media. You have bought a domain. Tell me about what was some of the thought process as to why did it feel important to you to start creating some things for yourself and to put yourself out there? Hey, it's Chad here, and this is an ad for this show. I want to personally say thanks for tuning into the podcast. Whether this is your first episode or you've been here for a while, it means a lot that you're here. I'm not asking you for money. Actually, I'm asking for you to take a small action to help grow the show. More specifically, there's 3 things you can do to help grow the show and spread meaningful conversations like the ones that we have here. First is to leave a rating or review for the show on the platform that you're listening on. It takes about 10 seconds and can make a big difference. Number 2 is to subscribe or follow the show on whatever platform you're listening on, just so that you make sure you get notified of each episode that's published. Lastly, number 3 is to share the episode. Whether you send a text to a friend, talk about the episode at your next book club, or make a post on social media, sharing goes a long way to help. So thanks again for listening, and thanks in advance for taking a small action to help the show. Okay, back to the episode.
Because I wanted to be a resource. I wanted to be more than just like, oh, we should call Brittany if we need private duty. Like, we should only call Brittany if we need hospice. Like, no, you can call me if you need anything healthcare related. Like, if you're in the hospital and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, the doctors are saying this and the doctors are saying that. Like, I might not know the answer and I might not be able to help you, but I hope that I know somebody that does. And I run into so many people in my job now and my previous roles that struggle navigating the healthcare system, especially as they age. And the population is only getting older and everybody knows that, or I hope that they do and they're preparing for it. So I want to be a resource. And I knew that if I didn't put myself out there and show people that I was approachable and that they could call me and that I am hopefully somewhat knowledgeable, then they wouldn't contact me. So
as you're starting to create some of these things for yourself and you're starting to position yourself and wanting to be this resource where people can just come to you if they have questions and you want to help, how do you think about trying to monetize or make money off of some of these things that you're doing or creating? Do you feel pressure to make money off of them, or are you okay with just trying to be a resource and trying to help people? It's something that I struggle with often. I'm curious how you think about these things.
Yeah, it's interesting that we are talking today because I literally had someone call me last week and ask me, how are you going to make money on this? And I'm like, I'm not. I'm not. And it was never my intent. Like, it's not my intent still to make any money off of it. And I don't need to make, would it be great? Like, of course, like, who doesn't want, to buy their kid an extra outfit, like whatever, but like, we don't need that. So I'm happy just helping people. I do feel pressured sometimes to like try to figure out how to make money doing it, but like I can just block it out and I'm like, yeah, like, no, I appreciate you thinking about me, but I'm okay, thanks, because I don't really think it's necessary at this time. If I thought like I could go out and do some consulting on my own or something, like maybe I would consider, but like I am not at the point right now in my life, and I don't know that I ever will be, to like own my own business again. So I grew up as a business owner's child, and I am A-okay working for a company. So
what makes you say that?
There's a lot that goes into it. My husband and I ran a family business for a couple years, and it's really straining on marriage, like it's a lot. And if you own your own business by default, even if your spouse isn't working in your business, like they really are, because like this is our life, like this is my life. And at some point I can turn off my work right now, even in a quote unquote sales position, I can turn it off. But if you own your own business, like, and you don't have the things in place to like answer the phone if you're not there, it's 24/7 nonstop. And I've seen it over and over and over again. With my parents when they owned their own business, and then when my husband and I were running the family business, like we'd get calls in the middle of the night because the security camera's going off, or like someone threw a brick through the window, or like whatever. So it's just not suitable for our family.
Well, and I think that's the valuable thing about having some of these different experiences and seeing what it's like to be involved in a family business, seeing what it's like to be responsible for that family business, seeing what it's like to have a full-time job and have some of the benefits of that. There was a period in my life where I kind of often thought that everyone should follow the same path, and like everyone needs to be entrepreneurs and everyone should have their own business. And then, you start to experience things like, well, everyone wants different things for their lives, and everyone wants different things out of their work. I mean, as you think about today, the role that you want your work to play in your overall life, what does that look like for you? What do you want your work to give you or to bring?
I want it to bring stability for my family, and I want it to be fulfilling for myself. So stability for my family, like, being able to, go on a trip once a year, or, pay the freaking daycare bill, because that's too much. Like, it's ridiculous. So there's that. But then also, like, when I was because the last time we talked about this earlier, the last time I saw you, I was working at a car dealership, and that was not fulfilling to me. Like, I could never have done that for my whole life. And there are people that do, and that's great. Like, if that's what they love to do and that's what they know how to do, like, that's great. But that wasn't, I want to like help people. It's just I feel like that's what I am here to do. I don't know. And then in whatever role that is in me helping people, I just want to be the best that I can be in that role, and help as many people as I can in that role. So, and I feel like right now, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm able to make a living and help people as I do it. And if there's growth, that's great. And if this is where I'm meant to be, that's great too. People ask me like, well, what's your goal? Like, where are you going next? And I'm like, I don't know, like, just along for the ride. I don't have to have something else. Like, I just want to be the best that I can be in the role that I'm in, and whatever is supposed to happen will happen. Everything happens for a reason. And like, some people are like, oh yeah, everyone says that. But like, I truly believe that and like live it every day.
I like how it's just a very personal choice and personal decision, and whatever is right for you at this time and at this stage, and trusting that whatever is supposed to happen will happen. That feels very empowering. And sometimes I think I put a lot of that internal pressure on myself of like, where am I going? Where am I getting to? And then it removes just any kind of contentment of being like, well, what if it's just okay where you're at right now? And what if it's fulfilling your needs? And that can be okay too. There doesn't always have to be a future thing planned out. So maybe that's a message that I've benefited from and other people could benefit from as well.
Yeah, I mean, I played sports my whole life, and I think that's kind of where it came from, is like when I got to the top, it wasn't, it was how I got there and not getting there. It wasn't, it was like the hard work that you put into it every single day, what that taught you. It's not actually being on the podium that means anything. It's all the work that you put into being on the podium. And I guess maybe I learned that through sports and my family. But it's just how my brain works. I don't know.
Well, Brittany, thank you for sharing some of your story and perspective. I found it really insightful and helpful and meaningful, and I trust that other people will as well.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Next up, I'm excited to introduce you to Ryan Monte. And in preparing for the conversation that you're about to hear, Ryan had sent me a message and said that he had faced this kind of dilemma or question. For him, it was around, should he pursue more of a passion in video or pursue a career in engineering that was likely to be more lucrative? Ultimately, Ryan ended up taking the route of pursuing the video-oriented passion, the video career, but he said he actually wouldn't recommend that everyone go about things in the same way that he did. I'll let Ryan share more of his story. Here's Ryan Monte. Walk me back to when you were trying to decide what career path you wanted to take. I guess just walk me through that decision. What were the things that you were weighing? What were the things that you were thinking about? What was important to you as you were deciding what your career was going to look like?
When I was like really trying, like when I felt like I had all my options in front of me and I was trying to pick something, it was kind of between like mechanical engineering and video production, which are really like they're really different career paths. I always enjoyed like mechanical engineering. I always like worked on motors and stuff and like building things. And I did pretty good in math, so I was like in advanced math classes in school, and so it was always like, yeah, I could do that, and I know I'd make money, and I know I'd probably enjoy it too. So that's kind of like, I guess now that I think about it, like wanting to enjoy what I was doing was always kind of like at the forefront. But I think what really swayed me towards video is I was working as like a production assistant on set for a commercial, and I was talking to the producer, and she was like, "Yeah, I work 4 days a month and send all my kids to private school." And I was like, "That's pretty cool." I think like what the cool thing about that to me wasn't like, "Oh, she makes so much money." It was that she has so much freedom. It was like I liked the idea of having to work as little as possible to be able to choose what you're doing with the rest of your time. Granted, like now that I know a little bit more about it, I think she's kind of inflating that number a little bit. I think she's like spending 4 days on set, but like as a producer, she's spending a lot of time like at home, like actually you're organizing things and putting things together. So, but still, I mean, it was the freedom aspect, I think, that sort of swayed me to look more into the freelance world.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about you make this decision to go down the route of, I mean, you went down the video route, right? And
Yeah.
initially kind of attracted to some of this freedom based on this portrayal that someone had shared with you about like, oh yeah, this career, I only have to work this much and I make a good living. That was maybe what attracted you to it in the first place. What has some of your experience been now that you have gone down this path of it's not very clear, maybe at the time, exactly what you were going to do? You were pursuing this freedom. You had this vision of what it might turn into. What's some of your experience been like?
I think for the most part, actually, it has kind of felt like that vision has come true, because I think a lot of the work behind like what I do is trying to find work, and thankfully I've been able to partner up with a friend of mine who is pretty good at doing sales and like actually running the company, so I can do more of the actual like technical work that I enjoy, and like the hard skills, like knowing how to put shoots together and make things look good and cut everything together in post-production and all that stuff. Like, that's what I always wanted to do. I never really wanted to be like doing the sales part or running the business or talking to clients. So yeah, so meeting up with Scott has been great because we make a really good pair where he's really good at talking to people and making things happen, and I'm really good at like basically he talks to people and I make the videos. So it's like, yeah, to get back to your question, like, it can be hard finding work, but when you do work, the money's pretty good. So the like work for a short time and then have a lot of freedom has definitely like been a factor, and I've enjoyed that. But it also comes with the stress of like having to find work all the time, which, because I'm now a part of a team, it's not that bad anymore. It's really like I don't really stress about it anymore. But in the beginning, it was like, I would make like a lot of money in 3 days, and then I wouldn't work for like 2 months. So I ended up having to have a job I didn't want anyway, which was like serving tables. So, it was like a slow build up into now, and now like I'm in a place where, we're raising a family, and I'm making enough money to provide and put money away, and like I still have a lot of that freedom. So it was kind of like worth the wait. And you can ask Liv if it was really worth the wait, but like for me, it was really worth the wait because I like a lot of the times we're filming in places where people are working 9 to 5s, and they're like sitting in offices, like doing accounting work for factories. And it's just like, I don't want to shit on anybody that's doing that, and like you said, like security is a big thing for a lot of people. It wasn't a big thing for me. I didn't really need the security. I would have lived in a van without a sink, like I don't care about security. So I think that helped when it comes to like pursuing your passions and stuff, and like just taking risks.
If video was, in creating video, being in the media world was something that like you enjoyed, I guess before you decided that you wanted to pursue a career in it, did you create videos by yourself, for yourself? Was it something that you did for fun? Like, how did you come to the conclusion that I wanted to pursue this as a career choice in the first place?
Well, I think there was like, yeah, I used to make a lot of videos a lot, like with friends of mine growing up. Like a buddy of mine lived down the street. We spent our entire summer one year making this like pirate movie saga with like 12 different locations and like 3 different huge battles, including like this pirate fight like in the water with like armies that we like simulated by like through editing. And the software and the computers we were using were just like Stone Age even at that time. So the files all got corrupt, and I never got to see the whole thing come together. Like, we edited the whole thing. We spent weeks, and we were like 12. It's like you don't try that hard at anything when you're 12. All through school, like anytime there was an option to make a video project for like an assignment, they could say you can make a video or you can do whatever other kind of project you think. It would always be video for me, and I always got like sweaty, like standing up in front of the class, like watching my classmates watch the video I made, even though like I knew it was going to be hilarious. Like I knew it was going to be awesome because they didn't have YouTube or anything. Like I felt like I was one of the only like home movie or like, video creators that kids knew of personally. So it's like when my class project goes up, I'm standing up there and I'm just like, I'm showing my work and I'm sweating, hoping they're going to laugh, because it was always like something funny. And then, I got a real thrill out of watching people watch what I made. So
I think that's one of the things I wanted to explore in this series is, so now as we sit here today, when creating videos is now what you do for a living, it's how you earn an income. What is your relationship like to just creating things for fun? Like if we go back to that version of Ryan, who made this pirate video, like you weren't being paid to do that. It was just something that you, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, unless you were, you had a big media deal as a kid making a pirate video, but
Nope.
you're making this thing purely for the fun of it, purely for the creativity. Do you still do that? Do you still create for yourself purely for the sake of creating now that this has become what you do for a living?
Yeah, I think I have like 5 dead YouTube channels that are all about something different. I still enjoy it. I think like I also like the idea of like, I hate admitting this, but it's like I think it'd be so cool to be a YouTuber. Like my whole life I always thought it'd be so cool just to like make whatever videos you want for fun, and like your audience is basically your friends at that point because you have so much in common with those people. So it's just like making videos for your buddies and like making money, that'd be awesome. But like, so I'm still trying. So I do have like, yes, I still like making stuff. I have like a YouTube channel where I make videos about all the stuff I'm doing in the garage. Like I'm still mechanically inclined too. Like I still like working on motors, and I've actually combined the hobbies at this point because now it's like my YouTube channel is about working on motorcycles and go-karts and stuff I enjoy doing. It's like, why not document it? And I have the skills to do it. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer for me.
How has the relationship been, or like how have you maintained or just navigated some of the boundary around creating things for fun or creating things for work and with the purpose of creating an income? It's something that I struggle with. Like I started this show from a place of it was just something that I wanted to make. And I find myself consistently applying pressure, like this thing needs to earn income. This thing should be a business. This thing should be something that is part of what I do for my work or my career. And sometimes I feel like when I apply that pressure to it, it actually has maybe a negative outcome and leads me further away from the place of just creating because it feels good, because I want to, because I'm interested in doing it. How do you navigate some of that relationship? Because essentially some of the work that you're doing is the same between if you're creating for your own YouTube channel and if you aspire to be maybe one day have the ability to have that be your career.
Or at least some supplemental income.
Or supplemental income. Yeah.
Maybe.
And you're doing the same style of work for your day job, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate those two things?
Like, how do you not suck the joy out of it by putting too much pressure on it?
Yeah.
I think it helps that it's about something I like. So it's kind of like if it flops and nobody likes it, like I still liked it. And I'm not like, I haven't yet gotten to the point where I'm just making videos just because I think the algorithm will like it. Thought about that. But like there's a difference between like creating for the algorithm and just creating for yourself. And part of it is nobody watches it when you create it for yourself, but like part of it is like, you know, you have more fun doing that sometimes, and sometimes it's more authentic. So I think there's a balance, and each video I feel like is different. You know, sometimes I'll just make something and post it because I thought it was fun, but I don't have really any expectations for it. And so I think it's like a project to project sort of thing. It doesn't really like, I'm trying to think about all through the YouTube channels I've tried. There was one where I was doing a high five with somebody every single day before TikTok got huge, which probably would have blown up on TikTok, but I was just like a little too early for that. And that was purely for the algorithm and like just trying to get something that like people would watch or think was funny, and not like I'm not super passionate about high-fiving strangers, so
yeah.
Maybe that's why it died, you know. Maybe it would have kept going if I cared enough about it, or if it was something I liked outside of just like trying to like make something that would be popular. So I don't know, maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's just like, you know, if it's something you like, the pressure of trying to make money with it's not going to ruin it for you, because you're still going to do it even when you're not making any money.
I think that's one of the things that I'm wanting to hear people's experience on, is because it seems like, I think I've experienced at times that I do think the pressure of trying to make money from it can destroy some of the actual joy of doing it. Or at least that's what I'm trying to explore. So in your mind, do you feel like if it is something that you just enjoy doing, if it's something you enjoy doing anyway, and then you apply the layer of wanting to make money from it, have you not found that takes away the joy from doing the thing in the first place?
Maybe I just haven't tried hard enough. You know? Maybe I haven't tried hard enough to make money with it to the point where I'm like really putting a lot of stock in it and like putting a lot of pressure on it. Maybe I just haven't put enough pressure on it to feel like that. I think there's some things that I was doing, like the high five videos and stuff, where it's like maybe the pressure of it gaining in popularity kind of killed it, because it was like I didn't see it keep gaining. And if it did gain in popularity, like if it did get a bunch of subscribers, maybe I probably would have kept going with it. But I don't know. Yeah, I guess I would say maybe I just haven't tried hard enough to like make money doing that. And it's like when I think about it, it's like I try to make money making videos like for my career, and I still enjoy doing that. So maybe not.
Yeah.
I think it might just be like something that I've always liked doing, and maybe just the pressure of staking my income on it can't squash that. Maybe. And there's been times where it's like I am waiting tables because I'm not making any money doing the thing I actually wanted to do. So, you kind of pay the price sometimes, but I don't know, man. I was actually, it's funny that we're talking about this today, because after we talked 2 days ago, a longtime friend of mine called me because he's trying to figure out what to do with his life. And he was like, "You seem to always be doing something you're passionate in." And I was like, "This is so funny because nobody ever calls me about this, but two people did in 1 week." But he was trying to get some advice on like what to do. And he's like of the mind where you set off on a track. He's like, oh, maybe he's considering like becoming a doctor. So he's like, that's 8 years, and I'm not going to start my career until I'm in my 40s. And I was like, well, you know, 8 years is a long time. So like a lot of different things happen, and you find yourself in a lot of different positions over the course of 8 years, and you have all these different opportunities that come up because of the track that you're on. Like you're going to school, you're meeting people, you're becoming a part of different communities. Like opportunities will come up that you can make a decision about. So it's like, I was just saying to him, like, don't get sucked into like analysis is paralysis. Like, pick a track, but also, don't count on going like it just being a straightforward path for 8 years and then you become a doctor at the end exactly where you wanted to be. It's like, a lot of stuff happens in 8 years. And he was like, well, that's interesting because I don't really think that way. He's like more of a grind hard and like stay focused and move straight forward type of guy. And he was telling me, he's like, you're way more go with the flow than I am. And so maybe that has something to do with, you know, maybe that has something to do with why the passion's not dead. Maybe the passion keeps changing into something else to suit my situation or something like that. I don't know.
I think that's a really interesting thought. It makes me think about the word passion in the first place. And it's just like, what is the definition of passion? Where does passion come from? I mean, if people are sort of identifying, if people are identifying you as someone who works in their area of passion, hey, you seem like you're passionate about the things that you're working on. When you think about passion for yourself, what does that word mean? Where do you think it comes from?
To me, it just means what's important to you, I guess. So maybe I'm not passionate about anything in the classical sense of like being passionate. Like, I don't know. I'm not like a guy who has like burning desires to be successful and, I don't know. There's kind of a theme to this so far, is that I don't give a shit about anything, um, which is kind of true, um, in the sense of like when I hear like other people talk about like the career paths and like you know all those inspirational people you scroll past on Instagram and stuff who give you entrepreneurial advice and how they worked ground hard for 7 years to build $1 million businesses. It's like, I don't know. I don't want that. Like, I'd rather balance like my free time and my working time than have the success of like having been grinding for 10 years. But we'll see what I think when it comes time to retire when I'm like 90. So maybe my mind will change. Like those people are going to retire like pretty soon, you know. I'm not.
It goes back to this conversation of, you know, what role do you want your work to play in your life? And it feels like, at least for me, the traditional definition of the role that work plays in your life is just like, find a job that can pay you well, that's stable, that's secure, do that job for 35 years, be smart about the way that you save money, and then if everything works out as planned, the moment that you reach 65 years old, or sooner if you're lucky, you'll be able to retire, and then you can live the rest of your life doing whatever you want. That feels like the traditional path. And I don't find myself interested in that path at all. So I've been exploring in my own life. Why is the goal to retire as soon as possible? Like that seems to be, you know, the greatest thing you could do is stop working and retire as soon as possible. Well, that feels like it's built on the assumption that you don't like the work that you're doing. Like you know, the greatest accomplishment is just to be done and to get out of there. And so I find myself thinking, well, but what if I do some of the things that people do in retirement? What if I do them now? So that's why I live in a van. What if I can craft my life and my work in a way to like, what if I'm not just, you know, waiting and just waiting for that moment when I can finally stop doing work? Is it possible to find something that I don't want to retire from in the traditional sense? What if I could be 90 and still doing some form of work that I really enjoy? I guess these are the things that I find myself thinking about. And I'm wondering if you do too.
Yeah, I do. I think I pretty much agree with everything you just said. The only issue is making enough to be 90 and do something that doesn't require you to be bodily able necessarily, because we don't really know how we're going to be when we're 90. Like we can do our best.
Right.
But like it's kind of a bummer when people talk about working for 35 years so they can stop. It just seems like it would make more sense to me just to do something you like until you can't. And then hopefully what you liked made you enough money to be able to not be able to do it and like still live like a relatively happy life. Like I don't care if I'm working till I'm 90 either, as long as like my work isn't like destroying my body, you know, and I still have enough time on my hands to like, you know, hang out with my kids and my grandkids. But you know how sometimes you like go to Home Depot and like you see the guy working at the cash register and he's like 90 and you're like, what are you doing here? And we just asked a guy like that the other day, like, hey, because he said something about his kids and we were like, because he was like, oh, he said something about his kids and we were like, what do your kids do? And he was like, oh, they're all like millionaires now. They've all moved away. He's like, I just work here because I need something to do. Sorry, dog's ruining everything.
Oh, that's good.
I think there's a lot of upsides to working 35 years and retiring. Like I can definitely see the benefit of doing that. Like you're not going to be stressed about like what, you know, where's the money going to come from, or like, I don't know. I think money is a huge stressor for me, or has been in the past, is thankfully like a little bit less now, but like most of my 20s, like I was pretty broke. So, and like my friends who had gone the traditional route were like, yeah, I go to work, but like I have my weekends off and I can do whatever I want and I have the money to be able to like go on trips. Like I haven't traveled a lot, you know? So I'm always like, I mean, I've traveled a fair bit for work. So that's kind of, that's another, that's another side to that coin too. But, yeah, I guess I would just say, I think I think you trade something on both sides, like you do give up the security. Sometimes you do give up some of the like financial gain from being in a secure job and like having I don't know, let's just say like having a pension or something, or just having like a solid, like I have never had a paycheck that I know what it's going to be. Like after taxes and all that stuff, like it's different every single week, like every single month. I never know how much money I'm going to make ever. I've never been able to like open up the finance apps and be like, all right, I'm going to put aside 10% of my income to savings, 10% of my income to like, a project I want to pay for. And I know how much money that's going to be. It's always like, all right, I'm going to wait till the paycheck gets here because I don't know how much it's going to be. And then I'm going to divide it up after that. So there's like that stability that comes from that more traditional route that sometimes looks pretty tempting, but I think for the most part, I wouldn't trade it for the freedom of like being able to choose your own schedule. I mean, you don't really like choose your own schedule because you're always working with the client. So it's like you work with the client on your own schedule, but I feel like I have some say over like what I do and like I have some autonomy, and that's really important to me. So there's upsides to both, I guess, but yeah. I like the one I picked.
As we wrap up this conversation, I'm just curious about when you think of building a meaningful life, living a meaningful life, what does that look like for you specifically? What are some of the elements of what make up a meaningful life to you?
There's like a pre-family answer to that and a post-family answer to that. Pre-family would be like do meaningful work, help people, do work that makes an impact. And now it's like just take care of my family. I think I still like doing work that creates an impact. Like it's pretty easy to do that with video work because there's like a lot of nonprofits that need video and stuff like that. So it's kind of easy to like apply video work to be able to like help people who need help. And we do a fair bit of that. And it's really satisfying when we do. But right now it's like, this actually kind of took me a little while to get over that hump of like the work is really not what's most important now. It's getting the money so I can take care of my family. But I'm super thankful that I still enjoy the work and I have the flexibility to spend time with my family almost whenever I want. Yeah, I think just raising good kids and, having a happy family right now. I think once the kids are on their own, that'll be a whole nother answer to that question,
Ryan, thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, Chad, thanks for having me.
There was one more perspective that I found myself interested in and wanting to gain for this show. I've spent my entire life living in the United States, and so of course my view of work and the ways in which I think about work, everything is shaped by societal norms that are happening here in this country. And this is one of a couple hundred countries that exists across the world. And so I wanted to get the perspective of other countries, of other places, and to see how they might view work or think about work differently. Anyway, in that process, I was able to connect with Nicholas Butler. Nicholas was actually born in Michigan, and within the last 18 months or so, moved to Japan. and started a work career over there in a new place, in a new country. And so I wanted to get some of his thoughts and experiences on how is work culture in Japan different from the US? Does he like it better or worse? And how do they kind of fall in this money or passion argument? Anyway, here's my conversation with Nicholas Butler. Are you from the US originally and then moved and you currently live in Japan?
So I was born and raised in Michigan. However, I am also Japanese. My mom is Japanese and my dad is white American or Caucasian American. And so I was born into a pretty unique situation where I'm a dual citizen. So, yeah, just always been curious about Japan and everything. So I figured so I'm 31 now. So then after 30 years, I figured, you know what, man, it's been 30 years. I should probably do something else because like I've been so curious my whole life and I have never been able to find a opportunity to live over here. So I just moved over here and figured, fuck it, just go for it.
So how long has it been now that you've lived in Japan?
It's been a year and a couple months now. So in a total 14 months.
Okay. And so paint a picture for us as far as your work career. You know, was this move in particular related to your current work? Was it unrelated to it? Tell us a little bit about what you do for work and how this big move fits into that picture.
Yeah. So I went to school to become a engineer. So I started off as a industrial engineer back in college. So I worked for a Japanese automotive car parts manufacturer, a tier one supplier. We made radiators and HVACs and like safety sensors and all that stuff. So yeah, so I'm a engineer in the automotive field. And so I worked at a plant for a total of 12 years, since I was 18 to until I was 30. And so I worked for a Japanese needs company because I wanted to do a reverse expatriate to Japan. That was my goal, since I was 18. Just being half Japanese and I speak the language, I know the culture. I just wanted to find a free way to get over there, So the company, they kept reneging on their promise to send me over here, mainly just saying there's no opportunity or the budget got slashed. So just after some time, I really was I'm kind of sad and slightly depressed and everything. And I know why, because I wanted to do this goal or my life goal and stuff. So, so I just ended up moving over here on my own. I quit my job and I figured, you know what, I'll try a new industry. Don't do automotive because there's pros and cons there. And I figured I'll try, I try something new. But yeah, it's kind of funny because I kind of ended up back into automotive again. So
you just can't leave.
Yeah, they pay really well, man. So yeah, so but I was able to do a different job in between. So I was a bartender for about 6 months when I first moved here. So I was able to do something different, although it was a pretty low paying job, but it was really fun though. Like, I understand why people do it. But I'm back into it again. But now I'm a product engineer. So I went from industrial to process, and now I'm a product engineer. So I basically go and help sell car parts to customers. So I'm the resident expert in Japan about our products. So when the salesman is trying to sell the part, and we're trying to do like a prototype, I help with that process.
Okay, very cool. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is I'm curious just to learn about how different cultures around the world look at work. And I guess in direct comparison to how we view work in the United States. I am also, I wasn't born in Michigan. I was actually born in New York, but I've grown up mostly in Michigan. I've spent my whole entire life in the United States. Similar age to you, I'm 30 years old. And so I've got, about 10 years of professional working experience all in the States. And of course, anyone listening to this is very familiar with the sort of work culture that exists here. I'm curious about, have you noticed any significant differences now that you've been in Japan for 14 months, you're living there, you're working there, specifically around work? Are there differences that you've noticed in how the two cultures view work, associate, some of this identity to work? What have you seen?
So there are differences. Yes. I was more surprised by the fact of how similar like it was. So I'll start with the differences first. One was so in Japan, it seems like it's more of a top-down style approach. So the workers, they tend to not to question authority all that much. When I say authority, I just mean the middle management. But like, it seems like whenever they say like you must do this or go do that or don't do this, people are just kind of like, okay, like they just do it. And then outside of work or like in between the halls, they're bitching and moaning about why do you got to do this and that. It doesn't make sense. It's not very logical. um, where in the USA, so, like I worked in the rural Midwest and the rural South. So my experience is only isolated in those two areas. And America is huge, so it's kind of hard to just say America just in general, I feel. But yeah, it just seems like Americans tend to question authority more. So they'll be like, why are we doing that? And then, then middle management can kind of react, kind of like, shut the fuck up, like you're going to do it. Or it's more of like, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, like you're right. Like I don't know why we do that, and so there's like more challenging authority type mindset in the States where Japan does not have that. So that's like the one main difference I've noticed. The other thing is it's the way they approach work. So in the States, what I noticed is that people tend to have pride in their work. They identify, as you've mentioned, like in Japan, it's less about pride, but more about a necessity. So like you always hear this, what I often heard growing up and consuming Japanese media and talking to Japanese adult males and females that worked was like, work is important because it gives me this lifestyle that I want, or like I do it for my family. And so they tend to rank work just as important to, if not more important than family. So like my wife, my kids. So it's like, if I don't do this, I can't do this. So therefore this is more important. And so I feel like Americans feel that way too. but they never really talk about it from that perspective all too much. It seems like they always talk about it from like a pride standpoint, like your blue collar dad. I have pride in my work, and it's less about like, man, I gotta do this, or I can't, I can't have nice things. I can't, I have a family. It's a necessity. I must do this. So it seems like there's this reluctant acceptance to the necessity of work, and so they just kind of take the beating, I guess, or they're willing to grit through it more than the average American, because the average American will question it, then that they will quit because there's more competition.
I'm curious about your personal story and your personal relationship to work. Now that you have been in Japan, you've been in a new culture for 14 months. Have you noticed any differences within your personal relationship to work, whether that be in just how you view work, how it fits into your life, whether that be some of your daily schedule? Has anything changed in your relationship to work?
Yes. I'd say that I am very much Americanized on that point. I reject how Japan works. I'm not a fan at all. All the rumors about the Japanese work cultures, well, not rumors, I guess news stories, everything, it's pretty accurate. I'd say like 70, 80% of it. It's so bad that they had to pass laws about overtime, and they had to force certain industries to like prevent people from working a second job. And so, which that didn't have the effect that they wanted, because they thought by forcing them to do that, then people will negotiate a higher year salary. But it doesn't work like that, since most companies have a lot of power, and so they can just kind of prevent or resist raising wages long enough until they can quench the uprising of their workers. So, yeah. So I don't like how the Japanese work. I do think it's kind of. And maybe it was worth it back in the day when you had a lot of buying power, but it just seems like if the power balance is going to be at the top, or the shareholders, the rich, the wealthy, like if you're not gonna and trickle down, then like it's not worth it to work as hard anymore. And like, I don't know, I feel like that sentiment is being more and more popular, and and accurate. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like both the countries are kind of in that like post-capitalistic, or like a late stage capitalistic part in their economy. So for me, like my mindset was formed in the USA, and I knew moving here, going into it, that it was going to be worse over here. So I just always had this like mental fortitude. And so I built within my brain, and I'm just like, I will not work for free, because I did that a lot in USA, because I was salaried, but but because I spoke Japanese and I worked with Japanese people, and so they'd want me to go on a meeting at midnight, and it's just like, so it's like I work until like 9 to 5, and then but usually till like 6 or 7, and then they're like, hey, can you hop on a call at 9 p.m. or at midnight? And I'm like, well, no, because it's past my like working hours. But then they'd be like, yeah, but you're Japanese, you got to work like a Japanese man. And I'm like, I really don't want to, because I don't get paid within that time. And they're like, yeah, but like but you got to help out, like you got to support. And so they kind of guilt you into man not doing all that stuff. um Sorry, going back to the main point though. I do I do reject the Japanese style of work. um I'm kind of lucky, like in the sense that my new job, it's a very relaxed and they trust me. We're a smaller company over here, so like we're based out of North America, Canada, but there's only two employees over here, so it's me and my boss. So um yeah, and I'm fully remote. I basically work hours that I want to, just minus the meetings that I have with both North America and Japan. And so my boss is very understanding, and he's like, "Hey, I understand that you got to work till midnight or like 2 a.m. sometimes. So if you want to sleep in and start later, or if you want to take a break in between, go for it, man." And so I was kind of lucky that I was able to find a job that did that. So yeah. But my bartending job though, it was very much like a Japanese work culture. Like they beat the shit out of you, man. They will yell at you. Like it's okay to do that. So
So
yeah.
as you're saying, like you reject, the Japanese work culture, you're saying specifically, it seems like people maybe are more afraid to speak up for themselves, more afraid to get their worth, to maybe draw lines or boundaries in some of their work. Is that the aspects of it that you're saying that you reject?
Yeah. Like there's a lot of social peer pressure in Japan. I'd say there's more than the States. Like in Japan, it's not, no, so it's not what being said, or what be, what's being said is not important as much as what's not being said. So they call that read the air, or read the room. So like that's really important in Japan, where in the States, it's more of like if you don't say it, then it doesn't count. Like implications, like you have some situations where implications or reading the room is important, but like if you don't say the thing that you want, then like you are not entitled to that. And so yeah. I will say though, like it's kind of a unique situation for me, is that um because I look Caucasian, and most people can't tell that I am mixed until I open my mouth. Um, People will treat me like a foreigner over here. So they tend to give me a pass on culture, even though I understand the culture. And so, because I want to reject certain aspects of the culture, I can kind of get away with doing that, or like, or challenging authority, because I look like this, and people on average just give me like a pass on that. So, whenever my boss at my bartending gig was like, "You got to do it like this," and I'll be like, "Why?" And then just like, "You don't, just like, because this is how it's always been done." And I'm like, "Well, I think it's kind of silly. We should do it like that, and it'll save us at 10 minutes per whatever." And then they'd reject it. And then, but like eventually I just push and push and push. And like eventually, like my idea was, what was implemented. Just like, see, people have good ideas, man. Like, like you gotta, but you gotta listen. So
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, do you think being maybe a little contrarian, do you think that is of benefit to your career long term if you do stay in Japan?
yeah, I do think so. In Japan, like it's what gives me hope is two things. One, everybody that I talk to, everybody says the same thing. Their like approach to work, how they hate that it's, like you gotta be, or like you have to identify with work. They don't like how it's all set up like this. I have ideas too, but they don't listen, or they yell at me. So I'm just kind of naturally, like nobody wants to get to yelled at, so they don't want to say anything. But like everybody feels most people feel the same way about things. So it turns out Americans and Japanese, needs people, they're pretty similar in terms of the needs and wants of now, because they are human, so like, of course, like they're going to want the same things. So that gives me hope. And that because the younger generation, like they are more resistant to, like they're more like me, or I'm more like them, and that they tend to reject. And so I think that's that's a good thing. But B, a lot of shareholders, or the heads of corporations, they really value the outside perspective. They go as to like they go far to say like, oh, we should hire more foreigners, or send our people overseas to do a expatriate, so they become more westernized, or like at least understand the culture, and then bring them back, and then promote them. And so there is a need and a want from a top-down approach, as well as there is a need and want within the labor for change too.
Interesting. Do you see yourself staying there long term?
Oh yeah, dude. Japan's awesome, man. Like I love it. I love USA. So I love cars, and like so it's always nice to be able to own the car that you want. But in the Japan, it's so convenient here, and it's just life. I didn't realize how convenient life can be, and I don't think I can move back. Man, like at least 5 years, maybe 5 or 10 years, and then I'll consider moving. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thanks for joining me on the show. Thanks for sharing some of your story. I appreciate it. Well, my friend, as always, my hope with these conversations and with this series is just to challenge you to think a little bit differently, or maybe think a little bit deeper about your work life, maybe in a way that you've never actually thought about it before. I've always found that when we question things, that's a good thing. Questioning things doesn't have to mean that it's bad, or that, we're viewing them in a negative way. To me, we should be questioning everything about our life. Are the things that have made me happy before still things that make me happy now? Is this work, career, or path that I've chosen, is it still fulfilling the things that I want it to in my life? Because as people pointed out in their stories today, things change. Our lives change. We go through different chapters and we experience different things. And I think it would be naive to assume that those things don't impact and change the way that we view our values and that we view our work life. So I hope in listening to these conversations and these discussions that we're having, you're spending a little bit more time thinking about, what are you working for? And as long as that's happening, well, then I guess that's a good thing. And I'll sleep good at night knowing that I'm doing my job. Anyway, next time on the series, we're going to explore the idea of retirement, because unfortunately, I've found that you got to make money to be able to support yourself and to live a meaningful life to some extent. And so I wanted to explore how this idea of retirement just fits into our working lives and how we think about it. And in that episode, I have a conversation with a financial advisor who explains the basic mechanics of retirement. And then 2 conversations with people who were on sort of opposite ends of the spectrum. One who retired very young at the age of 37, and one who is past typical retirement age and still working. Anyway, that's ahead in the next episode in the series. See you next time.